going to introduce the original text, and afterwards I show the illustrations which I commissioned from well-known Hong Kong artist and historian, the late Arthur Hacker, to illustrate the original text, which helped tell the story in brief. There's the book cover. What caught my eye in the Hong Kong Public Records Office as I was skimming through the microfilms of Colonial Office correspondence, beginning from the year 1841 up to 1920 or so, was the title page of the pamphlet. You see the subtitle, A Sketch of What Might Happen. I turned the page to the opening page of the 1897 pamphlet, The Back Door, and read the opening paragraphs. I was startled by the reference in the middle of the page to the collapse and downfall of Mr. Brooke's country, Hong Kong is meant, sometime between 1889 and 1905. What had happened? Why hadn't I heard of this before? I turned back to the opening note and found there that the story was a warning, not reality. The last 6 words say, that being forewarned, we may foreon. The Colonial Office minute sheet referring to the back door says, I don't know whether you've seen this, it's cleverly written and worth skimming through. Captain Nathan might also like to see it. Captain Nathan, of course, was later Governor of Hong Kong. We know him now better as Sir Matthew Nathan, and Nathan Road was earlier referred to as Nathan's Folly. Yes, Lord Selborne agrees. I have it, but haven't read it yet, C.P. Lucas writes. Send it to F.O., the Foreign Office, another official suggests. On the other side of the minute sheet, we see that the suggestion of sending it to Captain Nathan was acted on. The pamphlet was sent on to him with the words, for you to see, if you haven't already done so. Thank you, Nathan replies to Sir W. Hamilton. I have a copy. So we see that whoever reissued the original newspaper serial as a pamphlet, he or she really was serious about using it to influence the defense of Hong Kong, and had sent a copy to several influential and relevant people in London, hoping to get them to take action or use influence in support of the ideas it puts forward. Now, what about the story that the back door tells? The late Arthur Hacker's 9 splendid illustrations, in his well-known, inimitable style, give a quick impression of the whole. In the first one, 2 government officials, Mergens and Hazeland, are out for a quiet evening's fishing near Aberdeen in a hired sampan. You can see the sampan lady. They see, to their astonishment, a large vessel without lights being piloted in by a Chinese junk. It's the Russian ship Saratov. In the second sketch, news of the impending invasion and attack is transmitted throughout the territory, then consisting, we remember, of Hong Kong Island and Kowloon only, by various means. In Hacker's sketch, we see a Sikh policeman galloping from Central to rouse the British at Quarry Bay. The sketch also shows Queen Victoria in her new statue, watching with rather podgy stoicism, with City Hall in the middle ground and St. John's Cathedral and the Peak indicated in the background. In the third sketch, a battle is in progress. Sergeant Dimmock calls out, "Here, sir, ammunition for God's sake." The Church of England clergyman Rollings, taking the view that although he is not permitted as a man of the cloth to fight, there was no rule against supplying ammunition, hands him some. "Hush, my man, don't swear," he says, "but aim low." This is one of the nice touches of characterization in the narrative. In his fourth sketch, we see HMS Tweed ramming the port bow of the Chinese customs cruiser Feihu, which had already fallen into Russian hands. We see a survivor using a plank to help himself keep afloat. In the next sketch, illustrating the fictional story, the Hong Kong volunteers' fire takes effect against the advancing Russian forces. The volunteers, then and later, were Hong Kong civilians who underwent training in order to be able to defend Hong Kong if needed. As we know, their role at the time of the Japanese invasion is justly celebrated. In this book, earlier but fictional exploits of the Hong Kong volunteers are also celebrated. The details of the uniforms and weapons, by the way, were very carefully researched by Arthur Hacker. One of the battles very graphically described in the story is the Battle of Deepwater Bay. For myself, after such a long time spent working on the text, this battle is now very real as any actual battle that I know of from history books. Many Russian prisoners were taken at this fictional battle. And this meant that it was an unexpected day for debtors and vagabonds then languishing in prison, for they were released to make room for the Russian prisoners. In the next sketch, we see their attempted jaunty steps away from what we are told was relatively desirable incarceration and the truculent stare of one of the imprisoned Russians. When a country is under attack, it's obvious that there must be a meeting of the highest authority in the place. In the next sketch, we see the last meeting of the Hong Kong Legislative Council under British administration, according to this fiction. Afterwards, Hong Kong became a Russian colony, an impregnable fortress, the story says. We see Governor Sir William Robinson and Paul, later Sir Paul Chater, with his large moustache, sitting on his left. Standing next to him, Ho Kai, later Sir Kai Ho Kai, and in Chinese dress, Wei Yuk, later Sir Bo Shan Wei or Sir Bo Shan Wei Yuk, the gentleman who gave Po Shan Road its name. Ho Kai and Wei Yuk were then the only two representative Chinese members of the Hong Kong Legislative Council. Arthur Hacker has caught their likenesses just as we see them in contemporary photographs. Behind, in a portrait which we are told resembles one that used to hang in Government House, young Queen Victoria sits in regal splendour. In Hacker's 8th sketch, after landing and advancing through the future new territories, the French camped out in sandhills, which have since, in real life, been levelled north of Kowloon. In this sketch, a Pathan member of the Hong Kong regiment creeps up on a French sentry. In Hacker's ninth and last sketch, finally, Hong Kong burns. We see the well-known clock tower. On the left of the clock tower, we see the Hong Kong Hotel, and on the right, Jardine Matheson and Company. Then Stolterfort and Hearst. Then the P&O office. In the foreground, the French cruiser Éclaireur stands by.